Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome back to what I now realize as I pushed play on the camera is really just a Random Thought Thursday, a series of videos I make in which I just share thoughts. I guess I didn't think about this one this way because this video is really inspired by a video I saw from Mark over at Book Time with Elvis, in which he was discussing BookTube's legacy. I'll leave a link to Mark's great video down below. Go take a look at it. In part, I want to do that because I want to encourage him to continue his series, which he's tentatively titled Monday's Musings, because I think that's a really interesting thing. I always like hearing people's thoughts here on BookTube, and in part because I think the topic is just interesting. And what Mark wonders in his video is he wonders, essentially, will BookTube survive? And, by, to a larger extent, then will YouTube survive? He points out how that there are all kinds of things from the ancient past that we haven't bothered to decipher, that we haven't bothered to try to understand, some things that we still can't understand that exist from the ancient world. And he kind of wonders, will YouTube, BookTube survive? And if it does, kind of what might be the result of that. So his question really kind of focuses, I think, on just the issue of whether or not YouTube videos will survive. To me, the more important topic that he kind of brings up there, though, is will what we do here on BookTube, if it survives, will it be understood? So to me, those are two separate questions. And the second one, to me, is by far the more interesting. So what I would say about whether or not YouTube, BookTube will survive is that, to me, it seems unlikely that YouTube and our videos will survive. The primary reason being, well, there being two reasons. Number one, being that YouTube is a corporation. And, while corporations can last quite a bit of time, like railroad corporations or, tea corporations or things like that, they do have a tendency to die out, particularly when the second thing is factored in. So if YouTube, the corporation, dies, will anybody bother to come and pick up all the, video archives of all the videos people have uploaded to BookTube? I think a cautionary thing would be to look at what happened with Vine and MySpace. Did that stuff that people created and put on those sites, did that survive? And I think the answer is largely no. So, when YouTube itself collapses, which it will, I believe, in a shorter period of time rather than a longer period of time, will anybody bother to preserve the videos we've uploaded to YouTube? And I think the odds are largely against it. The second thing, I think, which kind of argues against the preservation of BookTube, YouTube, just in a historical sense, is that, YouTube depends on being kind of the leader in the technology for long-form videos on the internet. And since it is so technologically driven, sooner or later, better technology is bound to come along. Sooner or later, something is going to replace the technology that YouTube depends on. And when that happens, again, I question very seriously whether or not anybody will bother to preserve the the videos that are on YouTube. So for those reasons, I think it's unlikely to survive. However, if some parts of YouTube, BookTube, do survive, and assuming that there hasn't been some kind of environmental nuclear disaster which sends us into, plunges humanity back into another dark ages where we actually go backwards technologically and then have to catch back up again. Assuming that doesn't happen, then I think more advanced civilization in the future will be able to figure out, if the files actually survive, how to decode and watch the files and watch the videos. Again, I don't think all of the videos will survive. That would be ridiculous. And as Mark rightly pointed out when referring to the Sumerian civilization and cuneiform tablets, not all of those will even be bothered to be translated. I don't even think anybody would task AI to look through all that stuff. But if it does survive in some advanced civilization at some point in the future, 1,000 years, maybe even as little as 500 years from now, looks at it, what of what survives will they understand? Assuming it doesn't all survive, because to me that's the least likely thing. Just things will survive at random. And what is chosen for survival, and this is one thing I find really interesting historian-wise, what's chosen for survival, oftentimes, we assume that, for instance, the Iliad and the Odyssey are the greatest in some ways works of ancient Greek literature. But what if the greatest works of ancient Greek literature just didn't survive? And what we have is the Iliad and the Odyssey. So to me, the bigger issue is, will what is preserved, will any BookTube or YouTube videos that remain, that stick around, that are then able to be deciphered and viewed by future generations 1,000 or 500 years from now, will they be understood? Will they be invested with greater significance? Will those future civilizations look at, I don't know, a Mr. Beast video and go, okay, well, this is what the world was like? Or will they, look at YouTube videos involving people doing something insanely stupid and go, wow, people in the past were stupid? That's entirely possible. But assuming they find BookTube content, which, I think Mark refers to some of it as being kind of like trash. If they find BookTube content, they might not even find the BookTube content that each of us would want them to find from our channel. And even if they do, will they understand it? Will they get all the cultural references? Will they get the reference or care about the references to books that no longer exist, because books are impermanent? There are all kinds of authors and books that went out of print, as little as 40 or 50 years ago, that we've never heard of, that we'll never read, and those books are gone unless they're preserved in a library somewhere. So of then what is not lost, will they understand it? Will they understand all the cultural references, all the book things that we're talking about? And again, I think the chances are unlikely. We imagine that advanced civilizations would just be able to figure it all out, have this historical record. I'll just point out that I believe humanity still has not deciphered, what is it, Mycenaean B, Mycenaean A? There are things about ancient civilizations that we've been studying for a long time that we still don't know. I think it's unlikely that they're going to understand it. And, while I'm on the topic of understanding, we also, I think, assume that, in the future, people will look back on the time and see that we had some kind of universal understanding of things. Well, I can tell you, using the example that Mark uses in his video, that, what we assume is universally understood really isn't. So he references people making videos about Gone with the Wind and talking about being racist. And his reaction is, well, duh, everybody knows it's racist. Having made videos about Gone with the Wind and spent time arguing with people in the comment section of my videos about whether or not Gone with the Wind is racist, I can assure you that not everybody believes that Gone with the Wind is a racist novel. So if we don't even have a universal understanding of something, that I think Mark and others seem to be is so obvious, then how can we possibly hope to understand the nuance or how can we possibly hope that people in the future will understand the nuance of what we're talking about? For instance, I have a feeling, to me, I feel like my videos about Gone with the Wind are largely misunderstood, and that's fine. We have an imperfect understanding of one another. Even an attempt to communicate and share ideas, we don't create a perfect understanding between one another. Our own personal biases, our own personal ideas, the fact that we might get distracted when we're listening to something, the fact that something may stick out to us from something somebody said more than another, we don't have that understanding, even of what we're trying to communicate with one another. So I think the chances that future generations are going to understand what we're talking about are slim. And again, if we can't agree about, the universality of things as simple as whether or not Gone with the Wind is racist, then we don't agree about the need for vaccines, we don't agree about climate change, we don't agree about wealth distribution. And so all those things that we don't agree about are reflected in YouTube videos. And so depending on which YouTube videos survive, advanced future generations may think that we had ideas completely separate from the ideas that we actually have. So all this, summarizing all this down, I would say that YouTube videos are unlikely to survive. If they do survive, it won't be all of them. The ones that survive may not be the ones that we think would be the most important. The ones that survived are unlikely to be understood by future generations because we don't even understand them fully ourselves. They're unlikely to be recognized as holding universal truths, even though they're likely to be held up as being far more significant for the simple fact that they're old. And they're likely just not to be understood what we were even talking about. So my basic idea is we really shouldn't worry about BookTube's legacy for the future. It's not something we can control. It's not something that is likely to work out the way we would want it to the most. And instead, we should just do what most of us do, and that is make the videos about things that we enjoy, make the videos about topics we think are important, make the videos about things we think are fun, and not worry so much about BookTube's legacy. There is my Random Thought Thursday video for this week. I look forward, thanks again to Mark for the inspiration. I look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.